a land of myth and a time of magic, the destiny of a great kingdom rests on the shoulders of a young boy.
Welcome to another Merlin recap that is coming in a timely manner, where I talk about every episode of season 3 of the hit British TV show Merlin and give my thoughts about all the stupid things the main characters do. And as normal, there will be a lot. I have already recapped season 1 and 2, so go watch those before you watch this one. Season 2 ended with Merlin discovering Morgana's betrayal to Camelot and the Pendragons, so he had no choice but to poison her to save Camelot, and Morgana fled with her sister Morgause. The first episode of season 3 is called The Tears of Uther Pendragon Part 1. This episode is set 1 year after the final of the season 2, and Morgana has been declared missing. The only ones who know otherwise are Merlin and Gaius. For the last year, Arthur and his men doing patrols looking for Morgana with no success. This time, when they leave, they are attacked by a bunch of bandits and they end up victorious, and Morgana emerges from the forest disheveled and traumatized. Everyone rejoices that Morgana has returned. Everyone apart from Merlin, who is scared Uther will find out he poisoned his ward. Morgana is talking to Arthur the horror she endured for the last year, and when Arthur leaves, Morgana tells Merlin all is forgiven. She understands why Merlin poisoned her, and she regrets her part of what happened at the end of season 2.
I have seen the evils in this world. I have seen firsthand what it is that Uther fights against. You don't know how much I regret everything that I've done.
We finally see Uther and Morgana's reunion. Uther is so happy he is moved to tears, and Morgana wipes them away and leaves smirking evilly. You would think after just being saved from kidnapping, Morgana's room would be heavily guarded, but no, there's very little care there. Also, Morgana is sneaking around but wearing this bright cloak you can see from a mile away. How does no one notice her? Why are there no proper guards in this castle? Obviously, this was all an act by Morgana to get Uther's tears so that she could use it in a spell. The spell brings the victim's worst fears to life, and Morgana places the cursed object under Uther's bed. Uther immediately starts seeing awful things like his dead wife asking for help and starts screaming. The guards run in and find Uther curled up in a ball crying. Everyone automatically thinks Uther has a mental breakdown. Have these people not lived the past 2 seasons of the show, where every sudden change in personality is caused by magic? They were all a bit too ready to put Arthur on the throne with very little investigation. You would think the king losing his mind would cause an increase in security, but nope. For the second time since Morgana's return, she sneaks out of the kingdom to meet Morgause. We found out destroying Uther's mental state is only part 1 of the plan. Part 2 is getting the king of a nearby kingdom called Fyrien to invade Camelot whilst it's vulnerable, and on the way back to her room, Morgana stabbed a guard who saw her acting weird. This night is important. It's the first night Gwaine noticed Morgana acting weird, but she assumes it's because of her year in imprisonment. It is normally hard to feel bad for Uther, and I still don't. Currently he's seeing hallucinations of the children he has murdered, so he's getting everything he deserves. Turns out Morgana is not that good at murdering. Even though she stabbed and pushed the guy off the side of the castle, he survived, and she is forced to sneak into Gaius' chamber to poison him. Merlin finally suspects something may be up with Morgana and follows her. Morgana notices him as he is not subtle, so when she gets to Morgause, Merlin is captured, chained up, and left to the whims of the giant scorpion creatures. The chains are enchanted with magic, so strong that even Merlin can break out of them. He is forced to call his old scaly friend to save him. Meanwhile, Camelot is about to be under attack, and Gaius urges Arthur to take control. He thinks that will be given up on his father. They'll be given up on your kingdom if they all die, including your dad. Sit on the throne. Anyway, end of episode. I am still laughing how everyone's reaction to Uther losing his mind was immediate acceptance. Like they were all waiting for it to happen. They're like, about time. I feel like I should probably address the fact it's been a year since the last Merlin video. Anyway, the second episode of season 3 is called The Tears of Uther Pendragon Part 2. Merlin gets rescued by the dragon, and he tells Merlin his and Morgana's fates are intertwined, and as normal, Merlin does not listen to this. Merlin is dropped off back to Camelot, and somehow no one sees the giant dragon in the sky at all. Merlin gets back to Gaius and tells him Morgana is still evil, which was really shocking news apparently. They remove the mandrake root from under Uther's bed, curing him. Morgana discovers the man she left for dead is very much still alive, and threatens Merlin by telling him she will tell Uther he poisoned her. Apparently the mandrake effect lasts a while, so Morgause is not worried Uther will gain his sanity before the attack happens, and Morgana is given the Rowan staff, which she must use to raise the dead, so that Camelot's knights are fighting 2 enemies, not 1. I would like to remind you, Camelot is gearing out for a battle. How did no one notice Morgana sneaking in and out of the castle in a bright red cloak? Arthur begrudgingly takes control and orders Camelot to prepare for a siege, and gets all the people living outside of Camelot to seek shelter in the city. The battles start. Camelot loses Lower Town to Sendra's army. Uther was feeling better and tried to join in the fight, but got shot with an arrow in the leg. I didn't feel much sympathy. The skeletons start attacking. Merlin manages to find Morgana. He tries to reason with her, but she says she'll never stop her attack on Uther as he hunts down people like her. And Merlin just stands there awkwardly when she says he will not know what it feels like. Merlin collapses, ceiling on her, knocking her out, and when Morgana wakes wakes up, she does not even question how the ceiling only fell on her. Anyway, Merlin stops the skeletons, Camelot wins the battle, Morgana takes credit for stopping the skeletons and is hailed a hero. In the space of one day, Merlin managed to escape something that should have been inescapable for a regular human, and a ceiling mysteriously collapses on her head, and she thought nothing of either of those things. Moving on, the third episode of season 3 is called Goblin Gold, which is a filler episode where we get to watch Merlin make stupid decisions as per usual. Merlin had one job: get a book for guys. He ends up stumbling across a secret room with old book and artifact. Then he finds a lead box with noise coming from inside of it. Instead of leaving it alone, maybe looking up what's inside of it, because it's definitely written somewhere, he stupidly opens it and releases this goblin that runs out of the room. The goblin starts causing chaos and by destroying Arthur's room and tries to steal Morgana's jewelry. Merlin goes to Gaius for help, and when they realize it's a goblin, Gaius warns they have to capture it before it causes too much trouble, but it's too late as they get summoned to Uther's room to discover he is completely bald. Gaius and Merlin try to capture the creature by luring it with gold and they fail. Gaius ends up possessed by a goblin and somehow Merlin does not notice. Gaius goes around drinking, which he normally doesn't do, charging people for his remedy, which he normally doesn't do, and his strangest new behaviour, licking gold, which is the final straw for Merlin to notice something might be off with Gaius. It did take him concerningly long. In the council chambers, during a meeting, Uther, Morgana and Gwaine all start farting continuously due to the goblin. Later, Merlin is summoned to the council chamber and accused by the goblin of being a magic user, which he is. The goblin possessing Gaius says he is causing all the trouble. Merlin tries to warn them of the goblin, but no one believes him and he is imprisoned. Arthur, showing that he does have at least a bit of a brain, notices the man he has known his entire life is acting weird, and when Gaius rejoices over Merlin's conviction, Arthur knows for certain Merlin was telling the truth and tries to fight the goblin, but is knocked out and turned into a donkey man. Merlin escapes the jail because, as I've mentioned before, Camelot has awful guard. People sneak in and out of this place with ease. Merlin gets Gwaine to help him free Gaius. By poisoning the gold the goblin is always licking, so Gaius will start to die, the goblin will flee his body. Then they did lose the antidote for a while and Gaius did almost actually die for real, but it all worked out and the goblin was recaptured. Happy endings. They should have left Uther bald, he deserves a cold head. Fourth episode of season 3 is called Gwaine. This episode is very important as it introduces us to one of Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. I realise this story is very similar to Lancelot, but I like Gwaine so much better for some reason, probably because he is not boring. This episode starts with Arthur and Merlin going to a tavern. Whilst they are there, the tavern owner gets shaken down for money and Arthur decides to be a noble man. He steps in and a fight starts. Two people against this whole group are not fair odds, so this guy steps in to help. They win, but their new friend is injured, so Arthur and Merlin take him to Gaius to be treated. Gwaine wakes up and is upset to find out he helped a royal, that's the guy who was injured, Gwaine. Gwaine apparently really dislikes royalty and he also flirts with Gwaine to no avail. To soothe his broken heart, Gwaine drinks half the tavern's alcohol and Merlin is forced to bail him out and sends the bill to Arthur. Whilst drunk, Gwaine reveals he is of noble blood and his father was a knight, but when he died in battle his family was left with nothing and the king did not help, so now he hates kings and nobility. Somewhere in the woods, Idiot 1 and Idiot 2, who lost to Arthur, Merlin and Gwaine in that bar fight, they come up with a plan to kill Arthur at the annual melee. They get a pair of blood crystals, which are crystals that allow you to have the appearance of anyone whose blood you put onto it, and these two kill two knights and take their place so they can kill Arthur. That was so small-minded of them in my opinion. If only one of them had taken the identity of one of the knights, they could have got Arthur's blood during a duel and then taken Arthur's identity for a while and then robbed Camelot blind, then fled with their new wealth. But no, they thought small and just wanted to kill Arthur. They could have been rich. Merlin becomes suspicious of Idiot 1 and Idiot 2 when he touches a sword that appears to be blunt but is in fact extremely sharp, and the swords that they're meant to use in melee are not meant to be real, so he figured out to use magic on the sword. So later that night, he goes back to investigate and is caught by the idiots, and Gwaine has to rescue him, which results in Gwaine being banished for attacking two knights. Arthur tries to defend him, but it doesn't help, but Gwaine likes him more. The melee continues, and Merlin is powerless to help Arthur. Just before he is about to die, another knight saves him and kills the idiots. Obviously, it's Gwaine. Uther tries to have him executed, but when Gaius removes the necklaces and reveals Idiot 1 and Idiot 2's true identity, he calms down, but he still demands that Gawaine's banished for defying him. This is the second future knight of the Round Table that Uther has banished. He banished Lancelot, and now he's banishing Gwaine. In my defense, I got really distracted by my new obsession of the Muppet, so I blame Kermit the Frog. The fifth episode of season 3 is called The Crystal Cave, another episode of Merlin not listening, and it results in making everything worse. Whilst trying to avoid a group of bandits, Arthur and Merlin end up in the Valley of the Fallen King, and Arthur is shot with an arrow. An old man called Talzin heals Arthur and brings Merlin to the Crystal Cave, which shows Merlin a series of events that leads to Morgana being being on the throne to Camelot. This episode reminds me of an episode of That's a Raven, as everything Merlin does to try and stop the future from coming true leads to it coming true. A bunch of things from the vision start happening around Merlin, and Guy tells him to forget about the vision, and they do not always come true, but the final nail in the coffin was when Morgana received a dagger she had in the vision that she used to stab Uther. Merlin tries to stop Morgana, but it leads to her being thrown down the stairs, and now she's in a coma. Everyone is freaking out as Morgana's condition worsens. Uther reveals the biggest piece of lore, that Morgana is more than just his ward, but she is in fact his daughter, and he had an affair, one of his knights and his friend's wife. Really, I could not hate the man more. He's a bad person. Somehow the comatose Morgana heard the secret being revealed, and so did Merlin. I would like to point out the hypocrisy of Uther Pendragon, as he gives guys permission to use magic to save Morgana. This man has killed hundreds for their use of magic, but when he falls on desperate times, it's suddenly okay. Hate this man. Anyway, Merlin summons the dragon again and asks for a spell to save Morgana. The dragon warns him against it, but as per usual, Merlin does not listen, and he saves Morgana. Morgana tells her sister about what she found out when she was comatose. She had the legitimate claim to the throne. I thought children from outside of wedlock could not do that, but who cares? This show has dragons. Merlin tries to confront Morgana after finding the guard she drugged, but she threw him into a wall, sets her room on fire. Merlin stops her from killing Uther and saves the day. Gaius concludes Morgana must have overheard the conversation in her sleep, and that's why she tried to kill Uther, and Gaius thinks she will now be after Arthur as the only other heir to the throne. AKA, this is all Merlin's fault. If he had done nothing, none of this would be happening. The 6th episode of season 3 is called The Changeling. The episode starts 20 years before present day. In the Gwaine kingdom, the baby princess Eleanor has a spell casted on her by the She. Uther, as per normal, is being annoying and tries to force Arthur to marry Princess Eleanor for political reasons, but he does not want to as he is not in love with her. Morgana realizes Gwaine and Arthur have feelings for each other and starts whispering in their ears about them, because if Arthur gets married to a powerful ally, then it would be harder for Morgana to take the throne from him, so she doesn't want the marriage to happen, so she's trying to push Gwaine and Arthur together. Merlin in this episode realizes that Eleanor's servant Grunhilda is a pixie who is trying to get the She onto the throne of Camelot by having her marry Arthur, so him and Gaius have to stop it. They did not really have to try as hard as they did, as Arthur refuses to marry the princess, and luckily Gaius and Merlin cure her. They also murdered Grunhilda. This is the second She plot that has gone after Arthur. The first time was in the Gates of Avalon, when two banished She tried to sacrifice Arthur to get back into Avalon. At least they didn't try and kill him this time. But also, if this was a plan 20 years in the making, why were they okay with the last two She trying to kill Arthur if they had this 20-year plan going? Makes no sense. The 7th episode of season 3 is called The Castle of Fyrien. This episode was a turning point to the series. It marks the point of no return for Morgana and her evilness. Gwaine gets kidnapped in the dead of night and is brought to the kingdom of Sendrid and will ghost. They want her to lure Arthur to them. If she refuses, they will kill her brother, who has just spawned in this episode. We have never heard about her having a brother before this. They know about both Arthur's feelings and Gwaine's long-lost brother because Morgana betrayed her. Morgana's plan is for Arthur to die so that she will be the only heir of. Gwaine tells Arthur and Merlin about this, and of course Arthur insists that they go save Gwaine's brother, and Morgana decides to tag along for fighting support. Merlin is not happy but can't tell Arthur because no one would believe him that the sweet king's ward is going after the heir to the throne. Morgana was given a special ring that would allow her to broadcast the location of the group, and once they enter the underground cave, they are captured and all of them are thrown in cells to be tortured and interrogated, apart from Morgana obviously. Elien, which is Gwaine's brother, I forgot to mention his name up until now. Elien and Gwaine have a heart-to-heart, and Gwaine talks about how lonely she has been since their father died and he did not come home to visit her. Arthur and Merlin eventually escape, and when they go to rescue Morgana, she acts like a defenseless victim. While Morgause attacks them, but Merlin secretly stops it and causes a collapse onto Morgause. This is the second time something like this has happened, and Morgana thinks nothing of it. Do feelings normally collapse this often around her? They make their escape, and Morgana has to be dragged away as she's concerned about her sister, who just got crushed by a ceiling. The 8th episode of season 3 is called The Eye of the Phoenix. This episode starts with Arthur being left alone in the throne room so he can get a vision that will show him his solitary quest that will prove he's worthy of the throne. Not sure how prophecy visions do not count as magic to Uther, but for some reason he's okay with this, but other magic, no. Arthur has to embark on this quest alone with no aid, which Merlin is very okay with since he does not have to do anything. The quest Arthur ends up getting is to retrieve a golden trident from the kingdom of the Fisher King. We find out from Gaius that the Fisher King was once a sorcerer who became infected, and his infection spread from him to his kingdom, and the kingdom fell into ruin and became the Perilous Lands. There are rumors the infection has prevented the Fisher King from dying, so he's believed to still be inhabiting his castle. Also to be expected from a place called the Perilous Lands, it is super deadly. Morgana and Gwaine go shopping in the town when Morgana is approached by an old lady who turns out to be Morgause in disguise. These two walk away, much to the confusion of Gwaine. Morgause gives Morgana a bracelet to give to Arthur that she says will make sure that he does not return from his quest, leaving Morgana the only one left in the line for the throne. When both women return, they walk past Gwaine, and there's a mirror that reveals Morgause's true face to Gwaine. And when Morgana insists that it was just a poor old lady, Gwaine grows suspicious. Morgana gives the bracelet to Arthur as a good luck charm, only good luck to her, and as soon as Merlin sees it, he realizes it's enchanted when Arthur is leaving. Him and Guy figure out it's a phoenix eye bracelet which will slowly suck out Arthur's life force. So Merlin realizes he has to save Arthur yet again, and he goes searching for Gwaine to help him. He finds a man in a tavern skipping out on paying yet again. The two of them get chased out of the town. I'm pretty sure they stole a horse, unless Merlin bought a spare. Merlin had to search every tavern in Mercia to find Gwaine. He's lucky it took him less than a day. Back to Arthur, he's at the bridge that leads from Camelot to the Perilous Lands, and he runs into Warwick Davis, who is one of those mythical beings who annoyingly speaks in riddles but are trying to help. He tells Arthur that he will need strength and magic to complete the quest, since he already has courage. Arthur just thinks he's crazy. When Merlin and Gwaine get to the bridge, turns out they are strength and magic. Arthur almost drowns in mud, but doesn't. He's very dramatic about it. He's getting weaker and weaker as the day goes on due to the bracelet, and he doesn't realize. Gwaine and Merlin finally catch up to Arthur and see him being chased by wyverns. He gets away, but the bracelet knocks him out. Merlin saves him from the wyverns. His wyverns are distantly related dragons. Merlin's dragon lord powers work on these two, and he removes the bracelet from Arthur. A third wyvern returns after Arthur wakes up, so Merlin can't use his powers to stop it. Luckily, Gwaine slays it. Arthur is mad they are both there since the quest is meant to be done alone, but they still follow him. They find the throne room, and Merlin gets trapped in there by a stone wall. He starts looking around and finds the still living Fisher King. These two talk. Apparently, he was told that Merlin would come and free him from the curse. He gives Merlin his glass container with water from the Lake of Avalon and says it will help him in Abaddon's darkest days. Then he asks Merlin to kill him with the bracelet, and he does. Then Gwaine and Arthur finally get into the throne room. Arthur picks up Golden Trident. Gwaine, still banned from Camelot, and went on his own journey home. Merlin and Arthur return separately, so no one knows that Arthur had help. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier that Gwaine saw Morgana using magic and went to tell Gaius, and now they are both scared about what she has planned, especially considering how annoyed he looked when Arthur returned, safe and sound. To be fair, this episode was not the only clue Gwaine had to the fact that of Morgana's betrayal. She realized very few people knew about her feelings for Arthur, and even fewer people knew the location of her mysterious brother. When Gwaine realizes Morgana was not in the cell with either her or Arthur and Merlin, she started getting suspicious then. Seeing her talk to Morgause was just the final nail in the coffin to all of Morgana's strange behaviour since she had returned home. The 9th episode of season 3, called Love in the Time of Dragons, another filler episode about Gaius' love life. This time, Gaius' former fiancée returns to Camelot and is discovered after she started using magic to heal terminally ill people, but Gaius realizes it was her and covers for her. Turns out Alice, who is his former fiancée, is being blackmailed to poison Uther and blame Gaius. Merlin figures this out and tells Gaius, but he's blindly in love and doesn't believe him. Uther gets poisoned. Merlin tells Arthur the truth. Alice gets imprisoned. Gaius and Merlin kill the Manticore, which was the creature threatening Alice, and she's finally free of blackmail, but not that free because she's still in prison. Gaius does end up breaking her out. This episode really highlighted how self-absorbed Uther is. He has known Gaius for decades, and he did not know, one, that he was engaged, nor did he recognize the woman Gaius used to work with closely. I know Gaius is just his subject, but be a little observant. Another huge flaw of Uther that was highlighted in this episode is his hypocrisy. As Merlin pointed out, he permitted Gaius to use magic if it meant saving Morgana earlier this season, but when he suspects a healer of saving others using magic, he wanted them found and killed. The 10th episode of season 3 is called Queen of Hearts, probably the worst thing Morgana does. She pushes Gwaine and Arthur to pursue their feelings for one another, gets them caught by Uther, frames Gwaine for using magical enchantments on Arthur to make him love her, so now Gwaine's about to be executed. To stop Gwaine's execution, Merlin is forced to disguise himself as an old man to take the fall from Gwaine, so everyone thinks he's the one using magic, and Merlin just barely escaped being burned alive. All of this happened because Morgana had a dream of Gwaine being crowned queen by Arthur, so she tried to kill her oldest and dearest friend. This episode really made no sense to me because Arthur almost got married 6 episodes ago, and she did nothing about it really, other than sort of like manipulation. In this episode, she tries to kill the only friend she has. The 11th episode of season 3 is called The Sorcerer's Shadow. Yay, more filler. The Decennial Tournament is happening, which means fighters from all kingdoms are coming to Camelot. They have too many tournaments in this kingdom. I guess they're all bored from their lack of Wi-Fi and TV, but can't they have a fair or something? One of the contestants is this guy called Gilly, who Merlin discovers very quickly after meeting him that he is is using magic. Merlin warns him to be careful because he's using magic willy-nilly in the tournament. He gets to the final round of the tournament using magic, and he's going up against Uther, and he plans to kill him using magic. In this match against Uther, you can see his eyes glowing, but somehow Uther does not notice this, even though it is confirmed the glowing eyes of magic users can be seen. To prevent Gilly from killing Uther, Merlin uses magic to stop Gilly's magic. Uther wins. Gilly decides killing Uther is not worth it. This might be harder for me, but if you are stupid enough to use magic in front of hundreds of people just to win a contest in a magic-hating kingdom, that sounds like natural selection. I was very on board with the whole stabbing Uther plan, but my dreams are always crushed. I mean, they did have a valid reason for it being bad, because if the king was killed using magic, it would prove every claim he's ever made about magic being evil true, and Arthur, who would be the next king, would just continue his father's magic-hating ways, even though Arthur right now is kind of on the fence. The 12th episode of season 3 is called The Coming of Arthur Part 1. Sir Leon dies. He's one of the few knights with a name, and we see him get murdered. Luckily for him, a group of druids stumble across him, just barely hanging on, and use the Cup of Life to revive him. The freshly revived Leon returns to Camelot, and everyone is shocked when he mentions the Cup of Life, and Uther becomes determined to get the cup before Sendrid does. Remember Sendrid, that really unimportant king that Morgause is hanging out with? Yeah, he finds out about the cup too, and he wants it. Gaius informs Merlin that if the cup ends up in the wrong hands, then it can be used to create an immortal army, which is how it has been used in the past. Arthur is tasked with retrieving the cup from the druid. Morgana, being her new evil self, was eavesdropping and tells Morgause about the cup, and they decide to jump Arthur when he retrieves the cup. On their way to the druid's cave, which is Sendrid's kingdom, Merlin and Arthur are captured by slave traders and forced to fight. Arthur volunteers to fight so Merlin doesn't have to. He ends up being sent to fight Gwaine, who has also been captured by slave traders. These three manage to escape. Gwaine decides to join them on their quest to get the cup. They then get to a cave. Arthur decides to use a child as a hostage, which he really didn't need to. The druids were far too happy to give him the cup. The leader of the druid warns Merlin telepathically about guarding the cup, calling him his sorcerer name. I just know Gwaine was questioning life choices with one of his companions was holding a child hostage. They immediately get robbed, so Merlin, as normal, does not do what he is told. Arthur is shot with a poison arrow and is dying yet again. That is all these two do. Merlin does not listen, and Arthur is always borderline dying. In Sendrid's kingdom, they waste no time after stealing the cup from Merlin and Arthur, and they immediately turn all of the soldiers in the kingdom into an immortal army by getting them to drink from the cup, then putting a drop of all the soldiers' blood in said cup, and now Morgause has complete control over all of them. I have never felt less sympathy watching someone be murdered. It was very obvious from the beginning of the season that as soon as Morgause got what she wanted, she was going to kill him. He ignored the fact that she was homicidal because she's attractive and promised him power. What a fool. Camelot prepares itself after seeing the army coming closer. Morgana, knowing what's coming, offers Gwaine a place by her side, and Gwaine hesitantly accepts. Morgana didn't even offer her promotion. Arthur did not die, but is mad that Sendrid's men got the cup, and they get back to Camelot, run into Gwaine's brother, who tells them about the unkillable army that has taken over Camelot, because apparently they've been gone for so long that the whole place has been taken over already, whilst Arthur was having his little nap. They go to Gaius to have Arthur fully healed of the poison. Gwaine and Elin inform them that Uther has been brought to the throne room. Morgana finally reveals she knows she is Uther's daughter and takes Uther's crown, declaring herself the rightful queen of Camelot, and the others watch in horror. The 13th episode of season 3, The Coming of Arthur Part 2, the last episode of season 3, Morgana has taken over and trying to get the remaining knights of Camelot to bow to her, so the people consider her the legitimate queen, but they refuse. So Morgana has them brought into the courtyard to seemingly be killed, but instead she turns her army onto the townspeople to punish the knight, make it seem like it's their fault. Arthur is sulking in a cave with Merlin, Gaius, Elian, and Gwaine. Merlin tries to cheer him up, a little success. Merlin considers this Camelot's darkest days and tries to figure out a way to use the lake ward he got from the Fisher King. After trying every spell he knows on the water, he falls asleep and drops it. Apparently that was exactly what he was meant to do. It forms a puddle that shows Freya, the woman he got far too attached to last season, even though he knew her for like a week. When she was dying, she promised to repay Merlin's kindness one day, and I guess today is that day. Turns out the soldiers are not immortal, but living dead, and he can use Excalibur to destroy them, so he can get to the cup and pour out the blood. Merlin, as usual, keeps bothering that poor dragon who spent decades chained up in a dungeon, and is now at the beck and call of this fool. With his help, Merlin gets Excalibur back. Gwaine tries to betray Morgana by releasing Sir Leon, but Morgana and Morgause put a tracking spell on her, so she leaves them right to Arthur, so they have to flee. As Arthur and his friends are about to be overrun by Morgana's men, Lancelot and his friend Percival show up after receiving a letter from Merlin. They all flee to a new place, the castle abandoned by the ancient kings of Camelot, which has a round table. Arthur explains the table is round so that no one person is at the head of the table, table and everyone is equal. They all decide to save Camelot, and Arthur knights the people sitting at the table, other than Gaius, Gwaine, and Merlin. Since Lancelot knows about Merlin's magic, these two separately decide to go after the Cup of Life together, using his powers. The next day, they break back into the castle, they get into the dungeon where Uther and the remaining knights are, then they run into the Immortal Knights and start fighting. Merlin manages to get where the cup is being stored. His sword skills have really improved since season 1. Just as Merlin is about to tip the cup, Morgause shows up and throws him. Then Gaius, who overheard Merlin's plan, shows up and throws Morgause. Then Merlin crashes her into a pillar. Somehow she did not die. Merlin empties the cup and the Immortal Knights all die. Morgana finds her sister seriously injured, screams and starts to bring down the building on top of all of them. Yay, the day is saved. Uther had a mental breakdown due to Morgana's betrayal, so Arthur becomes the king. Gwaine and Arthur kiss in front of the others, including her brother. Apparently Morgana and Morgause escape the collapsing building. Merlin put Excalibur in a stone so no one else can use it. For the past 3 seasons, we have seen Arthur do multiple dangerous quests to prove he is worth the crown, and Morgana just strolls in, having done none of that, and says that she has the same right as him. I think they wrote Morgana far more devious this season, as she was way too much of a sympathetic villain in season 2. Her hatred was understandable. Uther has made his hatred of magic users well known throughout the kingdom, so her discovering she is one, the audience could understand how her fear of being discovered could fuel her hatred, as well as his treatment of her best and only friend Gwaine in season 1 and 2. At the end of season 2, even though Morgana has put a curse on the kingdom, we can still see her struggling with her decision, wondering if she's doing the right thing. In this season, all of that is thrown out the window. Her continuous betrayal of Arthur and Gwaine was shocking to me. Arthur I can kind of understand, but Arthur did not make the anti-magic rules. Him and his knights have enforced it over and over again, sometimes resulting in harm done to innocents and children. What I do not understand is the betrayal of Gwaine with zero hesitation. If we had seen Morgause convince her to do this, I would have believed it, but Morgana going with the heinous plots, sometimes even coming up with them against Gwaine sacrificed herself for Morgana's life just to see that friendship and trust was thrown away with zero fault feels odd. Season 3 feels like such a downgrade for Morgana's character, not because she turned into the villain, but because she became a ridiculous villain. She went from not being able to stand the executions that Uther was performing to killing people she wanted to rule just to spite the knights. They made her comic book levels of evil, and I know it's so that the audience was not split and everyone would root for Merlin and Arthur, but that is dumb. I feel like allowing the audience to choose sides would have been better. To show not everything is black and white, there can be nuances to things. The protagonist does not always have to be right and the antagonist does not always have to be wrong. Morgana's original motive was to allow people with magic to live peacefully in Camelot. Turning her on her own people makes no sense. Marching a half-dead army of a foreign kingdom into Camelot does not seem like the actions of someone who wants peace. This season alone proved to a lot of people in Camelot that magic corrupts. They saw the sweet ward of the king turn on the kingdom and side with an evil sorceress. Yes, we as the audience know Merlin has magic and he's working on the side of Arthur, but the people don't know that. They ruined a perfectly good antagonist by going the stereotypical villain way, and she kept smirking. She smirked her a lot in this season. The introduction of Percival has to be one of the laziest things ever. Every other knight got an episode dedicated to them, and Percival just appeared and was willing to die for a man he had just met. I mean, he got a knighthood out of it. They could have gotten rid of the changeling episode. The only purpose of that was Morgana realizing Arthur's feelings for Gwaine, and that could have happened in any episode. We got no background for Percival, justice for him. Talking about characters just popping up, at no point before the season did they mention that Gwaine had a brother. Other than Morgana, I do not think any of the characters have made any personal growth, whether it's good or bad. Merlin is still making the same stupid decisions that lead to bigger problems down the line, and those are all my thoughts of season 3 of Merlin. Season 4 and 5 are going to be in one video. I've been doing this series for 3 years now, and I didn't want to make it 5, so they're going to be combined. Look forward to that next year. Now time for the honoured tradition of me talking about characters that appeared in both Doctor Who and Merlin, because this country has like 10 actors. This one's actually quite short. I've Warwick Davis and Marion Margle. I also forgot Tom Ellis, who plays Sendrid and dated Martha Jones for a bit in Doctor Who. Oh, and I've recently started a Patreon. All the videos come up early there. I sometimes do mini reviews of things that I'm just watching. I post pictures of things I am doing. Just a lot of bonus content. That is all for today. Tell me your Merlin thoughts. Goodbye. I also want to talk about the little scene where Morgana covers her cup when Merlin tries to pour her a drink. She was like, not again. This made me laugh so much. She learned from her mistakes.